photography is not something which could be achieved in 1 hour because it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time. Nonetheless, I'll be talking a little bit about something which all of us could relate to. When we talk about, seeing, when we see stuff, like when we talk about human sensory organs, eyes play an important role. Because of that, we see the world. And before any other language, like before when a baby is born, before a baby talks or understands any other thing, or even comes to the level of expression with the language, eyes play an important role, because that's how we humans as babies try to record everything around us. But then there is a big limitation which comes to eyes, that you cannot see. Because if I ask you how do humans see, usually, generic answer will be that humans see because of eyes. And then that idea works perfectly okay as long as we value light. Because once we start valuing light, we understand that it is not the eyes that make us capable of sight. It is the light which makes us worthy. For example, you cannot smell the perfume Givenchy until and unless it is not sprayed. Once you get a puff of it, then you will get to know there is a perfume in the room or somewhere around you in the air. You always have the nose. The nose is always present, but the essence of perfume could only come once it is puffed in. In the same way, eyes are always there, and you cannot see until unless there is no light. Once the sun rises up early in the morning, what do you see? Everything becomes crystal clear, sharp, and vivid. And that's only because sun has its own grace. It makes everything clear, and human eyes respond to this light, and we call it sight. Now, sun doesn't stay with us for all the time, because everything in the life is temporary. It comes and it goes. So sun goes off by evening, and then we are left without any source of light. In earlier days, people would have to, compromise with the darkness and be in the lull. But then once technology came in and things started getting invented, discovered, initially it was the fire which people would burn, and then the light from the campfire or the bonfire would light and illuminate things. But then now we are in a different phase altogether, an era where technology masters and dominates everything. So we are talking about the LED lights, the tungsten lights, the filters, small bulbs, flashlights. So there is so much. And in the same way, when we are using majorly two sources of light, one is the natural source of light, which is sun, and then the other is artificial source of light, which is the bulbs, LEDs, as I told you. Now, why is this important to understand? This is important to understand because when we talk about photography, when we talk about camera is a replica of human eye. Like if we talk about human eye, it's around above 500 megapixel. And if we talk about cameras, they come up to 100 megapixel and stuff. So when we talk about cameras and eyes, they are parallelly same, they behave same. Unfortunately, camera is a very mediocre replica of human eye. And if we really want to shoot good pictures, we need to understand that light plays an important role in photography. If we use artificial source of light, or if we use a natural source of light, in any situation, in any case, light is very important. So for you guys, even if you're shooting with your mobile phones, you have to understand that light is very important. Until and unless you don't value light, you won't be able to see things. So light plays very important and vital role. And that's why if you see professional photographers, those who are trying to shoot, they will always use studio lights. They will use flash, they will use soft guns. Now, when we talk about, like, this is important to understand that light is important. So remember, the first thing you need to learn today is that light is important. So if you're shooting with mobile, you're shooting with a DSLR, you're shooting with a mirrorless, or you're shooting with any expensive camera, or you're shooting with something which is completely novel, you have to understand, until unless you don't realize that light is important, and until unless you don't take proper care of the light, none of your cameras equipments will be worthy. They won't be able to shoot good pictures. Even if you're shooting with mobile phone, if you're shooting with whatever comes your way, light is important. Light, sums up to 70 to 80% of photography. So once you understand light is important, then you go to the second step, which is photographers are passionate storytellers. Some of us sing, some of us dance, some of us write, some of make paintings. Why do we do all this? Because humans by nature are very expressive. We want to express ourselves. Like there was this caveman, he was hunting, eating, he had no house, no car, no luxury, and he was struggling in cold. He didn't have clothes, no stuff to wear. And then what was he doing? He was painting on the caves. Like, you could do million better things, but he was painting. Why was he painting? Because humans, by nature, are expressive. We want to share. We want to tell stories. The compassion, the empathy. These are, by default, the characteristics of human beings. So when we want to express ourselves, we use different mediums. And 10 years down the line, majorly people would sing, they would write, they would dance, they would make paintings. But then all these genres of art have limitations. For example, if you are a singer and you are singing a nice Hindi song, someone in Germany won't be able to understand it, even if he's a great fan of music. And then you're a great writer, you write nice novels, your style of writing is like Salman Rushdie, or you write like Orhan Pamuk, or you are someone who writes like Hari Kunzru. But then the problem is, you are an English novelist or you are an English author, you're an alchemist who writes stuff like that. But then there is a guy in Poland who doesn't understand your language. Or there is someone, maybe in Saudi Arabia, he doesn't understand English, but you're a great writer. So there's a barrier of language. In the same way, if you talk about India, like for example, people in South, they speak a different language. People in North, different language. People in Center, different. Like after every 24 kilometers, people are speaking a different dialect altogether. Even like uh, this is about the states. Even in the states, there are different dialects and languages spoken. So language is a huge barrier. You cannot do justice to an art with the help of language. The other one is educational barrier. For example, you are highly educated, you are scholarly educated. For example, when Sashi Tharoor gave his presentation, people were completely mesmerized because the kind of English he used was very different. People were not able to understand it. They had to refer to Google or thesaurus to check what he was trying to tell. And we got to know that his language is very scholarly. But then there are other things which are not scholarly done. Like, for example, Chetan Bhagat, he's a great writer, he does good whatever he does, but then he doesn't write that kind of language. He's differently into it. Now imagine you are an artist and you write something, and the maid who comes to your house, you want her to read it. She may be also educated, she could count money, she could understand basic English language, but she can't understand your poem. So the educational barrier could be scholarly. Like there's a scientist from France and he is right now into this workshop. Will he be able to understand what we are trying to tell in English? He's a scientist, doesn't matter, because there is a linguistic barrier and then there's an educational barrier. But when we talk about pictures, there is no barrier at all. The reason is because pictures have their own language. Each hue narrates an epic. Like whatever you are seeing, you are getting reference to it. You know what the picture is about, and it talks of its own. You don't need to be an advocate to the picture. Like if you talk about the languages on top of this picture, there is an Arabic, Hindi, Turkish, a language from the south, Japanese, and then English. So you could read maybe one or two, but you can't read all of them. But when you talk about the picture, if you are scholarly educated, the picture tells you this is religious, this is faith, this is Hinduism, this is sacred. So you get to know what you are seeing. In the same way, if you talk about someone who is basically educated, they will also get the same idea that what this picture is about. So uh, what I'm trying to tell you over here is that whenever we talk about pictures, they are more powerful. They let you understand, and each hue narrates an epic. And you really don't need to go to any language because pictures have their own language, and they go beyond borders. Then there is this one big, I don't know, should I take it as a question or should I ask it as an opinion or should it be an understanding? But there is this one big thing, which is what makes you a photographer. Like many of us buy cars. Do we call ourselves racers? We don't. Why am I being very harsh on this term? Because a lot of people buy cameras and start thinking that that is photography. They have become photographers. It doesn't happen that way. There is no harm in shooting pictures, because if you buy a camera, you have this flexibility of shooting pictures. You have a leeway of experimenting, but then there is one limitation which is very important, that it takes a lot of time to be a photographer. And if you want to be a photographer, it's important that you understand art properly. And you can only understand art properly if you go into its depths. You cannot become an artist in one day. And sometimes it takes decades to understand the art and the flow of art. So, if we talk about this kind of phase in art, so we have to understand that there are certain things which are important to take care of. Passion being the most dominant one. You need to be really passionate about being a photographer. Like, you cannot just shoot once in a week and then shoot good pictures. That's not possible. You cannot shoot twice in a month and then have a faith that you'll be shooting good pictures. So what you will have to do is that you will have to keep on shooting every now and then. You could have been uh, uh, experimenting with the camera. You could have been rather like whenever you become passionate, you could go out and shoot, or sometimes see the work of other photographers. And if not see the work of other photographers, then you will also have to somehow shoot your own stuff and then analyze it. So passion is very important. Passion is like falling in love with someone. Initially you talk, you chat, you want to meet, you want to have two scoops of vanilla ice cream with a brownie, and then after 6 months, that doesn't make much sense. And if it does make sense, then you eventually get married. It's like that. So when you buy a camera, same thing happens. You will be shooting for a couple of weeks, and then you get a nice stall, you wrap your camera in it and put it in the top slot of the cupboard. If that happens, anything which fluctuates on passion becomes a failure. So you have to be very passionate. Then the other thing is vision. Vision gets cultivated. So we don't actually become creative, or we don't become photographers in one day. It gets cultivated. One day we understand camera, then we understand lens, then sometime we understand color theory. Sometimes we go and we observe the light at a landscape situation, and then we understand, okay, this is how I could shoot it. So it's an observation which happens to humans, and we keep on understanding, oh, this is how it happens, and this is what should be done, this is what should not be done, this is how a picture could be better. So vision is something which you will cultivate as long as we are investing into it. They say keep your eyes open. And when we talk about passion, when we talk about vision, the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle. That is the punch. Because as long as you keep on sweating more to understand passion or to experiment with the vision, it will go a long way. The more you sweat, the more you struggle with it, you're becoming better. Then the third thing is equipment, because equipment plays an important role. Like you're a soldier and you want to uh, uh, fight your enemy, but then the problem is you don't have a gun. You are there, you are a part of an army, you have a uniform, and you are very brave, and then you want to fight. Can you fight without a gun? It's not possible. Low passion will fail, your vision will fail, and it only will work if you have gun. In the same way, when we talk about photography, if you don't have right kind of equipment, you won't be able to shoot good pictures. You may be able to do, you may be able to always dream about shooting good pictures. So equipment plays very important role. And there is a very thin line between a professional photographer and a budding photographer. If in today's world, I'm not trying to nullify the hard work and the experience a professional photographer has, but if a professional photographer and a budding photographer in today's world, we see the difference. It is the difference of equipment, like the equipment on which a professional photographer shoots. If I swap the equipment to a budding photographer, then a budding photographer shoots as good pictures as a professional photographer does, because equipment has become so simple that it lets anyone to shoot. Now, if you talk about mobile phones, the best camera is what you have. Like you could do wonders with it, you could shoot nice pictures with it, as long as you are uploading them on Instagram and social networking. But you could do that with phones. But then there is, hardcore photography where you earn your bread and butter out of photography, where you shoot pictures which have lot of shelf value, which have amazing depth of field, which look very professional, which are of Nat Geo quality, which are award-winning potential. For that, it's a big lie that the best camera is what you have. Like, for example, if you go with the mobile phone and want to shoot in Tanzania, you want to shoot the Masai Mara migration, that is not possible with the help of a mobile phone, because mobile phone has its own limitations. It won't let you zoom in. It won't give you the quality. The sensor is very poor in low light. It won't let you do that. So majorly there are two kind of cameras. One is called as full frame camera. Other is called as APS-C camera. So the size of the sensor decides what kind of camera it is. Full frame camera is usually used by professional photographers. And then we have the cameras, which are called as APS-C cameras. These are used by professional photographers too, but because of the price factor, sometimes there are people who want to buy APS-C cameras because they are cheaper than the full frame cameras. So when you buy a camera, what is very important? Usually people want to buy cameras which have high sort of megapixels. They want to buy cameras which are uh, impressive in looking, which have big lenses and stuff. But the only character which you should look for while buying a camera are these five. The first one is lens. It should be a camera where you could detach the lens from the body. DSLR, you could detach the lens from the body. In the same way, mirrorless cameras, you could divide the camera into two parts, the lens and the body. Then the image quality, which is the megapixel count, should be good. Then speed, how many pictures can camera shoot in 1 second? Then there is battery life. How much battery does the camera have? Because you have a good camera, but then when you're shooting in jungle, it just shoots for half an hour and then dies. You can't carry 20 batteries along. Then it should be lightweight, compact, and easy to carry. Okay, so this is about cameras. Now, when we talk about the genres of photography, there are a lot of genres of photography. And in today's world, the genres have increased a lot. So if I talk about the genres of photography, you could talk about landscapes, you could talk about wildlife, you could talk about uh, street, you could talk about portrait, fashion being dominant genre of photography, because a lot of people are shooting fashion from ages. And then you could shoot portraits also, or low key photographs or high key photographs. It's an unending affair when we come to photography. The point over here is that whatever you shoot becomes a genre in itself. Like, for example, the picture which I have shot here is of a baby, and there is an entire industry which only shoots pictures of babies, and you get paid a lot of money for that. In the same way, there are pictures which are about brides. Like, when people get married, they want to spend a lot of money into their lives. Like, whatever they have earned, they want to put it and show off a lot of stuff. And a lot of money goes into that. So the genres of photography don't end. Like, if you today decide that you will start shooting pebbles, that will become a new genre of photography. That's what's exactly happening with photography. If you decide that you will start shooting leaves, that will become a new genre of photography. If you decide that you will shoot yourself every 1 hour, one picture, that will become a different genre of photography. So the genres of photography are unending. Earlier, there were, a couple of genres, and we would, zero down to that. But now things have completely changed. Anything you're shooting is becoming, a genre in photography. And it could be anything, whatever you're shooting. There's one photographer, he shoots nails. And then there is this one photographer, he shoots the footprints. Then there is this one photographer, he shoots people peeing on the street. Once the people have peed, he goes and clicks those walls. He has done this for 40 years. Anything you shoot becomes a genre. Now the idea is wherever you put your hard work, and that the guy who was shooting people who are peeing on the walls, he was the photographer of year in 2014. So you know now what to do. So in the same way, like there could be fashion, there could be action, there could be anything, whatever you can comes across your camera, you could shoot it. Now this is one of the interesting photographs which you may have seen in the past. When I show you this picture, the idea is to tell you that, you know, in this picture, it doesn't matter whether this picture has been shot perfectly, whether the lady in the picture, like Anushka, and the other lady is slightly blurry. So while shooting these kind of pictures, it doesn't matter because the person is important. So here we have shot Anushka. Like I have shot a picture where I have shot Dalai Lama and he's a little bit blurry, but that works because the person is important. So sometimes you may be shooting pictures where your creativity, your skill is okay, but the person in the photograph is more important. And if you're shooting pictures like these, where person is important, they become the pictures of news and a lot of money. There are these pictures which are, as I told you that uh, there is uh, there is a lot of money which comes to photographers or artists or people who are content creators, where from they start these days they actually start from wedding photography, because if you're shooting pictures which are of women and related to their emotions and expressions, they sell easily. So a lot of lenses, dedicated lenses, are made for such kind of photography. And yeah, like this is one of the genres which we could talk about. I wish you guys, like I was, in one-to-one with you guys, because I say 10 things and you could respond to certain of those things. We could, but now, yeah, I'm speaking to my screen, so I hope I am not letting you down. Then there are photographers who shoot wildlife. Wildlife is one of the best impressive genre you could pick up, because whenever you're shooting wildlife, a lot of people, take impression out of it. Why? Because wildlife is something which is not easy to encounter. So when you go out there in jungle and you shoot pictures of wildlife, people who see such pictures really get mesmerized. And even if you are, at the basic level of your photography, they start giving their allegiance to you and they believe that you are shooting amazingly wow pictures, and they start having a lot of faith in you. In the same way, one of the genres of photography is, like, for example, you don't want to go on a jungle safari, you don't want to be out there and shoot. And because going on a jungle safari is not an easy affair, you will have to invest a lot of money into the equipment, and at the same point of time you will have to invest a lot of money into the travel. So it becomes really expensive genre to shoot when we talk about the wildlife photography. But then wildlife is not only going and shooting cats and going to Tanzania or Africa. You could also shoot wildlife in your backyard where there are bees, butterflies, insects, and you could use the basic lenses for shooting them. When we talk about genres, we have to understand that it is okay that there are different genres in photography, but things have changed. So photography has graduated to multimedia. In today's world, people don't shoot pictures, people don't shoot still pictures only, they don't shoot video only. They shoot more than that. So what they do is they shoot stills, videos, audio, vlog, filmmaking, VFX, slow motion, and time lapses. So you're a one-man show. Earlier, if I wanted to do something, I needed a producer, I needed a director, a cameraman, and then I needed someone to give me a break, and then I needed to submit my proposal, then it needed to get an approval. It was a long affair, and usually, there were conglomerates and there were a lot of plagiarism, or sometimes there was nepotism also. I'm not saying every time, but sometimes. So you would hardly get a chance, and the person who was doing it would never let any other newcomer to break the ice, because there was just, for example, one anchor doing something on a certain topic. Why would other people get chance? But in today's world, if you have an idea and you have a camera and you have a laptop, it's a production house. You could create whatever you want, put it on YouTube, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram. There are a million of other platforms where you could blog it, and then you have your own audience. You don't have to, limit your audience to people who watch you. You could send the recordings, or there are people who follow you, people who subscribe to you. And then if you grow big, then there are these big giants, corporate giants, who come and who start telling you to make these unboxing videos. They ask you to shoot their products, they ask you to endorse them, and you become influencers. So the game has altogether changed. The common man is powerful now. So even if you are, like, in a small room and you don't know anyone and you are good at creating content with your, with mobile phone, it doesn't go that long, because People want a good quality and good dynamic range and other cosmetics which are involved there. So at that point of time, you may need a camera, and it has become easier. A camera, an idea, and a laptop. So all you need is this, and then you could syndicate everything. So when we talk about visuals, they or art, it is to simplify a complex concept, and visuals are the most simplified form of art. Whenever I want to tell you something, whenever I want to share stuff which is exciting, so art is to simplify a complex concept. So for example, if there is an idea and I want to share it with someone, once I want to share that idea with someone, it's important that I have to simplify it. If I fail to simplify the concept, then it is not art. Once I simplify it, that is when it becomes art. In the same way, as a content creator, as an artist, it's important for an art director to make sure that he or she simplifies the concept, and then it's only called as art. This is one thing which is very, very important, because in today's world, uh, the biggest problem which we face is being authentic. Global media has a problem that no one trusts them. Anything which comes in the news or anything which is mentioned, uh, people start saying maybe it's from WhatsApp, or maybe it is not credible, or sometimes people start believing that it is credible, and after some time we realized that it was not credible. And a lot of photographers, content creators, storytellers are losing their credibility because they are not authentic. So, why am I telling you this? Is because anytime you are sharing a story, you are saying something, be very authentic. Because your creativity could go up, down, your picture could be bad, but as long as you're authentic, as long as you're honest about whatever you're sharing, it goes long way, because people will give sincere allegiance to it. And I hope it makes sense to you that you have to be very authentic, and whatever you shoot, whatever you are trying to express, because at the end of the day, it's your opinion, it's your story. Well, after being authentic, the other thing which you have to take care is that you have to be a storyteller. As I told you earlier, that's important, that stories play an important role. And stories should not be random. Like if you tell stories which are uh, not in pattern, which are chaotic, people don't like that. Now, in the stories, it has, for example, whenever you're trying to tell a story, it's important you establish it. Maybe one day I could, because when I talk about the beginning, middle, and end of the story, it has to go at least for one more hour where I have to talk about how it goes. But then uh, every time you tell a story, there is this saying, they say that photographers don't click pictures, they shoot stories. And as long as you are shooting stories, you are going long way. Then the stories which you shoot, they should surprise and delight the audience. When we talk about OTT platforms, why are they becoming more famous and more dominant on the casual cliche TV channels? Otherwise, there was a TV channel, people would watch it 24/7. There were so many channels. Why do people need OTT platforms to watch entertainment? Because the surprise and delight element has completely gone away from whatever we are usually watching. And anytime a content creator is creating anything, like for example, when they create these series, people watch it overnight, they binge watch it. Why? Because it is so filled with surprise and delight that they don't want to say, okay, now the series is out, we will watch one episode every Friday. That's not possible, because people, they are so much surprised and taken by the delight that they want to do it every day. In the same way, when you become content creators, what do? You, in the same way, start creating content which is filled with surprise, delight, which is authentic, and above all, what I'm telling you, that it should also have a story. Like it should not be random, it should not be chaos. It should have a proper story. Then the other thing is you have to invite. For example, you are a great cook. You make amazing biryani. or you are amazing at making poha. But then it doesn't matter because people, the audience who are there watching your stuff, they don't care much about what you do. If you tell them, I am a great landscape photographer and I will teach you how to do great landscape photography, that will change the game for them. Because people want to be related, and you have to be inviting, you have to be welcoming, you have to be warm. So whatever content you create, it should make them feel that they're taking something away, they are learning something from it. And even if you're not learn if, even if they are not learning something, at least it should entertain. A lot of people who create content, why do people watch it? Because they get entertained. And now, for example, if you are creating, because you're photographers, you can entertain in one way, but it should be inviting, because you can only entertain when you are inviting, and once you are inviting, you can entertain. So the idea is that every time you are creating content, it should have this warmth in it, it should be welcoming. There is a saying which says, don't judge the book by the cover, but unfortunately in today's world that is not true. People will judge book by the cover because things have completely changed. There was a time when ethics, morals, content, presentation, it would matter, then cover would not do much. But in today's world, it's altogether a different story. People will judge you by the cover. So every time you're shooting something, even if you have a great content, you have a great story, you are very authentic. It has a lot of delight and surprise in it. But then the cover is not good. Your visuals are not appealing. It's blurry. It is shaky. That's what happens on a mobile phone. So if you're trying to shoot with mobile phone, it will be blurry. It will be shaky. It will be dark. The colors will not be rich. People will not even bother to see what you are trying to tell them. They won't even give a second chance to enter it and see whatever you want to tell them, because they will start judging you. Be prepared, and it's important that one person should plan first and then perform. So when we talk about planning, as a photographer, what happens is we take our cameras early in the morning, leave our house by 3:30, reach the spot by 4, and we want to shoot something. Once we reach there, we realize that, for example, I want to shoot a street food festival or a street food corridor. Once I am there, I realize that on Fridays they are off. They don't act on Fridays, so there is nothing happening on Friday. So you can't do much in such situation. It's important that you do research properly what you are shooting, when you are shooting, what is its audience, who are you shooting for. For example, you are a great photographer and you go to some religious place where people are not comfortable in shooting. Like, for example, if you're shooting Kumbh, there are two sections of Kumbh. One is where only women are taking the sacred dip, and then the other side where men are taking the sacred dip, and then the third side where the Naga sadhus are taking the sacred dip. Now you're a great photographer. If you accidentally go to the woman side and start shooting, it's a problem. You don't know what's happening because you have no idea that this is the woman's side, and now you have the camera and you're shooting them. You could be in a huge problem. So you should do your research properly. What should I shoot? Then only perform. In the same way, like, for example, in European countries, people don't like if their kids are shot. Like, if there's a kid and you're shooting their picture, you could, it could be the worst day of your life if you shoot their kids, because they really get offended with it, and they will call the police, and then it is forbidden as per the law that you cannot shoot kids of other people, even when there are photographers who are paparazzis, who are photojournalists. When the celebrities are with their kids, they don't shoot them because they know they can't publish these pictures. In India, if you see someone with the kid and you're shooting the kid, parents get excited. They will ask you to send the picture. They will ask the baby to pose. They will pose with the baby. It happens. So the cultural sensitivity is also very important whenever you're shooting. And so whenever you shoot, plan first and then perform. It applies in all sort of photography. Be expressive, because as I told you that photography is not only shooting pictures, it could be video also. So sometimes if you're shooting something and you're shooting something which is very exciting, you're shooting a fashion call, you're shooting a backstage show on the fashion, and you're tired, you don't have any mood, you're just taking one shot which is very far, it doesn't work that way. So if you're shooting something which is sad, like, for example, unfortunately, when the ambulances were bringing the dead bodies to cemeteries and to the burial grounds, the journalist would sometimes, unfortunately, be excited that the ambulance is coming with 22 dead bodies. Now, one more ambulance is coming. You can see my cameraman is showing you 50 dead bodies. These are loud ones of someone, fathers, kids, sisters, mothers, wives. You can't be doing that. You can't be excited about someone's agony. So you had to be expressive. I remember there was this one journalist from CNN, and there was a flight, there was a crash, sorry, and he was reporting from there, and he said there's a huge loss of lives, and I have lost my words to express the pain. But before I call it, there are 25 families who are completely shattered. That is what he said, and it made a lot of sense. And his head was down, his body language was sad, he was completely not excited. So body language is very important, whether you're shooting pictures or video or whatever. Stay organized, one of the important things in the world of photography, because that is where we go wrong. So whenever we are trying to shoot something, the idea is we have this camera, and usually cameras are very expensive because when we talk about art without the proper gadgets, it's not possible to create it. For example, you buy good set of lenses, you have a good set of camera, but then the biggest problem which we face is if the camera gets into malfunction, then you will have to spend a lot of money to take care of it, or your lenses are not working, or any set of equipment. Like, there are a lot of equipment which is involved in creating stuff. So when you have the camera, the first thing which you have to do is how to take care of it. There is a bag which comes free with the camera. Never store your camera in that bag, because that bag is made up of foam, and foam takes a lot of moisture from the atmosphere and then transfers it into the camera. The camera becomes completely covered into the moss and fungi, and then you have to take this camera to the service center where they will take off this fungus of the camera, and you'll have to pay the money for that. So what you need to do is you have to buy an airtight box in which you store rice, cookies, and pulses. You can put your stuff camera over there with a couple of silica gel, and it should be okay. Now, once you're out there shooting, so what happens is sometimes you have your memory card which is completely loaded and you forgot to format it. And once you are there on the location, you realize that you cannot shoot because there is no space left on your memory card. And usually, in today's world, we have the memory cards which come with around 64 GB, 128 GB. So there is a lot of leeway on shooting those memory cards. But the biggest problem which we face on these memory cards is that as an art director, as a content creator, as a photographer, when you go out there, you're shooting pictures. The problem is you fill your memory card with so much of content that once you come back, you don't know what to edit, what to delete. So as a photographer, you don't have to bombard any subject. You have to shoot what makes sense. You know, when I shoot, I don't shoot more than 12 pictures in 1 year. And if I shoot 12 pictures in 1 year, it is a successful photography year. That is all we need, 12 good pictures in 1 year. Now, when you are having a camera which has a memory card of suppose 8 GB or 16 GB, you can shoot more than 3,000 pictures in 1 day. And when you come back home, how will you edit these pictures? Like 3,000 pictures is a huge amount of data. And like you try to shoot a beggar and now you have 3,000 pictures of beggar. What will you do with that? Then you try to shoot squirrel. Then you try to shoot metro. Then you try to shoot two people in the park who are, bunking their class and they're in the park, and their parents don't know about it, and then you take their picture, upload it on Instagram, tag everyone, make their life mess. That is also one thing which you should not do. So every time you come back home, select 5 pictures, create a folder out of it, edit those 5 pictures, they are your final pictures, delete rest of the pictures, and don't shoot more than 10, 20, 30 pictures in 1 day, because it's not only shooting, it's also about how you process them later. Then equipment plays an important role, which I told you earlier, because as long as you don't have proper equipment, you won't be able to shoot. So in equipment, you may need a laptop, a software, because for example, you had to edit your picture and you don't have a software. How will you edit it? So there are a lot of softwares with which you could do it. Like until unless you don't have right kind of gears, you won't be able to shoot proper stuff. Hanji bhaiya. Hello? Hello, hello. No, I'm not talking to you
Yes.
guys. Just give me, I just got an urgent call. Hello? Hello? Okay, anyway, sorry. So the idea is that equipment plays an important role, and every time you want to shoot pictures, you want to create content, you need certain set of softwares. And there are a lot of softwares which we use. Like for example, the softwares which I use can go up to Capture One. I could use softwares like Photoshop, or I could also use softwares like Imaging Edge. But then one limitation on these softwares is that they are very expensive. I earn my bread and butter out of it, so it's okay because I could invest into softwares and use them for shooting. But then, if you don't want to invest into high-end softwares, then there are a lot of other softwares which you could use. Like one is called as Affinity, and it is one-time buy. You could just pay around uh, $90, and the software is lifetime. That is the best thing which you could do when you want to buy a software, because if you try to buy Photoshop or if you try to buy any other softwares, you will have to pay monthly, and as long as you are related with photography, you will have to keep on buying. And I just forgot to tell you about the Affinity, that it is exactly a replica, not a replica, like it was there at the time of Photoshop, but they don't market much. It's exactly like Photoshop, and even better than Photoshop. And I quoted the price wrong. It is not 90, it is $30. So it's one time buy, and updates will be always free of cost. But if you have a Sony camera, then there is an software which is called as Imaging Edge, which is free of cost. And then there is one more software which is called as Luminar. It should be also free of cost. So these softwares could be used. The best and the simplest software which you could use, one is called as Lightroom. The other one is called as Snapseed. Unfortunately, Snapseed was working on laptops earlier, but now it doesn't. It only works on iPads and mobile phones and tablets. Now, once you have these software and stuff as a photographer, you have to go into the world of Jugaad. And India is a country of Jugaad where you could, use different techniques to shoot pictures, where you could use different techniques to manipulate. And, as I told you, art is very expensive and you can't buy every gadget, accessories. If it was your bread and butter, then the story was altogether different. But for you guys, like this is something which you could do. Or on the camera in itself, there are options where you could create time lapses, where you could create stop motions, or uh, these camera angles could be also achieved with the help of changing. Usually it is called as a gimbal. The camera is put on the top of a gimbal, and then you could take different angles. You could zoom in, zoom out. You could track in, track out. You could grab, and that because of that, a dramatic view of video will come, or the photographs will come. But if you don't want to invest in all this, you could just handle the camera and go forward, backward, and create stuff. And then you could also create stop motions like these, because sometimes when you're creating content, multimedia makes it more dynamic. Okay, so this is also one of the examples of multimedia, because if when like for example, when we shoot documentaries for National Geographic production, Uh, you may have recently seen a picture which was about this world's old the man who has a lot of wives. So this guy who has when he died, he had 38 wives, and I was the first person to shoot them. And it was a documentary for Nat Geo, and we wanted a cover shot for that, like the opening shot. And it was not possible to create the opening shot directly with those people, because then the suspense would die. But they were from hills and very remote tribal area, and I had to take a shot of sunrise and clouds like this. And it took me 4 hours to create that shot. Why? Because at that point of time we had to shoot on tapes. But in today's world, it is easier. Just with the one click of button, you could completely get the time lapse done on the camera, and you also don't have to edit it because it's completely done inside the camera itself. So this was the basic of photography and introduction to today's session. If you have any questions, you can ask. I would love to answer them. Anyone there, or you? I was. Hello. Anyone there?
Yeah, hi Sameer.
Yes, my friend. If anyone wants to ask anything, please ask.
Yeah,
If there was.
if anyone.
Sameer, this is Amita. I had a question, which is how do you select the angles? How do you decide which lens to put when? Um, certain times you bend down and take a picture. Certain times you put the camera up. How do all those tricks work?
Okay. So, for example, if you want to, these are called as perspective in photography. So, for example, you want to show someone very powerful. So what you will do to show his power, you will go on a low angle because, for example, when we have to talk about God, what do we do? Usually, sometimes we look up. Why? Because we believe that God is so massive and we have to look up. In the same way, if you watch the movies where they have to show the dawn, they always go on low angle and the camera will be on a wide shot where it will be focusing on the feet and the heels of his boot, and then you will be completely seeing a low angle shot. So every time you have to show someone dominant, aggressive, powerful, you will take a low angle shot. If you have to show them completely, you know, scrutinize them or show them weak, for example, take us like let us analyze it like this. You have to show a Thakur in a movie and you have to show a Garib Aadmi, Sarkar aap hamare mai baap hai. So every time the Garib army who wants to talk to the Thakur, you will take a top angle shot from the Thakur's view because you have to show him completely downtrodden, weak, poor, hungry. So from Thakur's perspective, it should look like the camera will be on the shoulder of the Thakur, and from there you will actually take this guy who is poor, who is asking for the help. Now, when you have to show Thakur, you will come and sit down with the poor guy and take from his shoulder and show Thakur completely dominant, tall guy who has all this pomp and show. And then at that point of time, the background will also matter. So there should be amazingly huge, big, massive villa in the background. So that is how you have to show him. Now, for example, this farmer or this poor, why did I use the word farmer? Because usually this happens in the movies. They show the Thakur and then the farmer is someone who is, trying to struggle with his drought. There is no rain. And, even if I have done a series on the farmers and I even shot pictures where three generation of farmers have committed suicide. They were not able to pay the loans and stuff. So when now I wanted to show, this young farmer, and I wanted to show him that he is strong, he is hopeful, and he will, completely revolutionize his life and fate. So at that point of time, I wanted to show him stronger. So what I did is he had this plow on his shoulder, and if I took his straight shot, like level shot, it was not making him dominant. So I took a low angle shot. Now where he was becoming stronger, it was his field, and in the background I kept a lot of blue sky. There was nothing else. There was the farmer, the plow, and the blue sky. So it adds to the dimension. The blue sky is hope. The blue sky is the promise that I will make sure there's a change. And then now I'm taking this farmer from low angle shot because now he is in his surrounding. Here he is authority. Here he is powerful. So these things are how you use different kind of shots. Now, for example, you are trying to take a shot of a leopard in the jungle, and you are taking a very wide shot. Now, when you're zooming in, and then you see this black dot, and you're telling your friend that this is the leopard, it won't work. So you need a different lens. You need a telephoto lens. So on a telephoto lens, there will be no trees, no mountains, no meadows, no grass. It will be just the close-up picture of the face of the leopard, opening the mouth, the teeth very sharp, the tongue coming out, the whiskers crisp and sharp. So when you click picture with a telephoto lens, you get that shot. Now you are at a landscape and you have the telephoto shot. So you are trying to click a picture. You needed the entire mountain range. You needed the sky. You needed meadows. You needed river. You needed the tree. You needed maybe that sheep, which was also in the frame. but you are on a telephoto lens. And when you are shooting a picture, there is this tree and it is an apple tree, and you are focusing and you're zooming on one apple. And that was not what you wanted to shoot. So you wanted to shoot, the entire tapestry of the scene. So what you did is you use the wrong lens. Now to get all the tapestry of this kind of situation, you need a wide angle lens, which is 12, 24, 24, 70. So every situation, every scene demands a different kind of lens, and there are different ways of shooting people, angles, composition, lines, and lengths. Someday we meet and we talk about it in the way, like, for example, if you still have questions and you want to know more about it and you want to come on one-to-one workshop, which will be free of course, this is my detail, which I have already published on the screen. Reach out to me. I will do minimum 30 minutes, and then depends how much we could extend it for one-to-one sessions. Anyone else? कोई
Any other questions, guys?
Any questions, guys? Please drop it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask Sameer.
Hi, Sameer, this is PC. Hello, am I audible?
Hi, I guess.
Hi. Could you tell something about the exposure triangle, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO?
Okay, so every time you are trying to shoot aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, this was something which was very important and dominant in photography. But because now there are mirrorless cameras, so usually the way you shoot on a mobile phone, exactly same you shoot on mirrorless camera. So you really don't need to worry about aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. But now if you have a DSLR, because on DSLR without knowing aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, you cannot shoot, because then you need to know. So the idea is shutter speed is called as time value. So whenever you shoot a picture on a camera, you click the shutter opens, and it is a kind of a door inside the camera. It opens and it remains open for certain amount of time. And that amount of time is decided by the photographer. It could be 1 minute, it could be 1 hour, it could be 1 day. The highest duration of that door open is 11 years. It was done on Hubble's telescope up into the sky. So you can open that door for as long as you want. So the light will keep on coming inside the camera. Then there is one more thing on the camera, which is called as aperture. Like how much light will go inside the camera. Time is shutter speed, but for how much amount? Like 10% of the light, 20% of the light, or 100% of the light. Sometimes you need only 10% of the light to go inside the camera. Sometimes you need more than that. So how will you decide that? That is taken care with the help of aperture. Now, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These are three things which are important in photography. When there was no sensor, there were film rolls, and these film rolls were very important because they had different sensitivity. If you had to shoot inside, you will get Pro Plus. No, if you have to shoot inside, you will get Kodak Max 300. And if you have to shoot outside in the sun, you will get Pro Plus 60. Because Pro Plus 60 was very less sensitive, so light outside would expose it properly. And Kodak Max 300 was highly sensitive, so indoor you would use that kind of film roll. Now, when we talk about digital cameras, there is no film, there is a sensor. So ISO is the sensitivity of the sensor towards light. Now, for example, 10% of the light falls on the sensor and output is 10%, it is 100 ISO. Now 10% light falls on the sensor and output is 12, ISO is 200. In the same way, every time you increase the ISO range, it is like increasing the volume of the music. You know, if you increase the volume of the music, the lyrics will not change. The music will not change. Just the intensity will change, the pitch will change. In the same way, When you are trying to increase the ISO, the quality of the picture will not change, the exposure will not change. It just will destroy the quality of the picture. Why? Because ISO is something which takes the quality away from picture. Now, why do we need ISO? You have aperture, you have shutter speed. If aperture is not sufficient in providing the amount of light, like you're shooting indoor and the light is very less, so you allow 100% of light to enter inside the camera, and you ask the shutter to remain open for example, 1/20th of a second. But this is not sufficient. It is still too dark. You need more light to enter. So what? But aperture is done. Shutter speed is also done. You can't use more than this. Then you ask the sensor to be more sensitive towards less light. So to some extent, ISO works. Like from 0 to 800, it's okay in some cameras. Up to 1200, it's okay in some cameras. Up to 3000 is okay. Sony has a camera which is called as 7S Mark II and 7S Mark III. So on these cameras, you can go up to 4,09,600. So when we talk about these cameras, they are dedicatedly made for low light and their ISO can range up to high. But on other cameras, you cannot cross 800 because after 800, a lot of noise will come in. So every time you're shooting on manual mode, three things are important: the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. And shutter speed and aperture are technical things which will take a lot of time to make you understand properly. It needs props and demos. If you also want to, ask me to give you one-to-one class, I would happily do that, where I will only talk about shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. My details are published. You could reach out anytime.
Thank you, Sameer. Actually, I own a entry-level DSLR, and I feel it extremely difficult to adjust in manual mode. So, how exactly do you do that? Because by the time you adjust your settings, the moment is gone, just like that, right? So, how do you cope up with this particular problem? If you could answer that, that would be
Yes,
really great.
at that point of time, like for example, I am shooting wildlife. I know that my settings should not be, my shutter speed should not be less than 1/600, and my aperture should be around 2.8, and my ISO should be around 400. So for the entire wildlife, I will use the same settings. I won't change it.
Okay. So basically, it is preset.
Right, because if you want to, set these settings while you are shooting, then there will be a problem.
Right. Thank you very much.
Welcome, my friend.
So Amita has a question. If you conduct advanced
Yes,
level classes.
yes, I do.
Okay.
Like if you want to know the basics for 30 minutes, they are free of cost. But if you want advanced class, then get in touch. I will tell you what we are offering.
Okay. Okay. So any more questions, guys? I don't see any more questions, I think. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sameer, for the wonderful session. I'm sure most of them got an idea about photography and what you explained. Also, guys, you can get in touch. Sameer's contact number is here and his Instagram account details are here too. So please make a note of this. And thank you, Sameer. Thank you, Abhay, for conducting this. It was wonderful having you guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Ameya.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take care.